if they can. Definitely 6 or 8 months from now, certainly hope they are. Right here is what we call the bud union. So at the nursery, they grew this rootstock and then budded the poncan, what they call the scion, on there. And it's grown out from there. But we see these trifoliate leaves, well, that's the rootstock, and that's what we're going to call a sprout. And that's a sprout from the rootstock. And we'll just go ahead, since we're planting today, we'll get rid of that. Anytime we see leaves come out below this bud union, we need to remove those. And the sooner you do that, the better. Another one may come out tomorrow. And until your tree really gets growing, you're going to see that. So that's removing sprouts. That's going to be one of your big jobs as you get started with this tree.
So we're supposed to remove any leaves that are below the grafting area?
Yeah, definitely. Anything that sprouts out, and the sooner you do it, the better. Now, eventually, as the tree starts growing, you'll see pictures of trees from other projects. You may end up taking some more sprouts and leaves out as it grows, but we want to get them growing pretty good before we do any of that, because it's easy to take them off, but it's hard to put them back on again. So you'll be able to tell once the tree gets growing and branches start coming out where your flare or branches are going to be. And then anything below that flare is where we may take some other leaves and sprouts off. But again, look at some of the pictures from past projects, and that'll kind of be a good guide for you. Okay, we have this tree here. We've taken the sprout. We have one sprout and rootstock out of there. So I like to, I don't want to get the dirt off my foot, I like to find the top of the root system. And we've had several questions about this. Is just part of the material the nursery used. It's going to disintegrate, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. The ones, the trees that do have that. Okay, I found two roots coming out here. Here's 3. Can you see that? See that, especially that big one? Right here. Okay, well that's what we consider the top of our root system. Now some of your plants, you may have that much soil before you find that. So we want to make sure we find, that's our root flare. That's the top of our root system. And we're going to check this root right here is, we want to make sure it's not what we call a circling root. If it was a circling root, which if it stayed up here in the top and was going this direction, we would probably actually cut this root out. But it looks like it's going on down deep where we want it, so we won't worry about that. But say if this stayed in the container another couple months, you might see some of these roots start growing this direction. That's not good. So I don't see any circling roots. That one almost started to circle, but I follow it down and it's actually going the right direction. So the top of our root flare is right there. So we're going to go down in our soil. We really want that top of the root flare to be actually a little bit above.
Like about this one?
Yeah, I put too much dirt in there to start. You guys told me to quit, and I should have listened to you.
You want it even with the top of the bucket?
Well,
Or above?
doesn't necessarily. I don't know about right with the top, but slightly below. learned from my mistake of putting too much dirt in there, too much soil to start with. If I can do it. Okay, here's that root. Get some more out here. I was getting paid per pot I was planting, I probably wouldn't do that. Okay, we got the top of our root flare pretty much toward the top of the soil. And the main thing, we don't want it deeper, because the roots of plants, they need oxygen just like we do. If we planted the roots too deep, they would not get enough oxygen, and they would start setting off what we call brace roots up here, and that doesn't look too good. The tree would be okay, but we want to try to avoid having the brace roots if possible. I know you guys are going to do a better job of getting it right in the middle of the pot. You have a lot riding on that. I'm talking and trying to go a little too fast. But anyhow, that looks about right there. And then the next thing we do, we just want to wet it real good. We want to get it. Don't just dump your water on. We want to not have a nice watering can, which is over in the back of my truck. But anyhow, just imagine. We dump a little on. Eventually, the water will start coming out the holes on the bottom, and that'll tell you that. Now, if you went there and dumped real fast, the water would start coming out quickly. Don't do that, because it's going straight down. You want to kind of evenly put the water 2 or 3 times, and then you'll see some little bit coming out. And that means your moisture is fine. Now, the main thing that you want to do, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself here. Plant the tree, wet the soil, and then we want to water just to keep it moist. Well, at this stage, the tree isn't going to use a whole lot of, the way plants work, they take water up from the soil, and during a process called photosynthesis, that water comes out of the leaves as water vapor through the stomach. And when the tree really starts growing and expanding leaves, that's when that process really picks up. So we want to check every day and just kind of check the soil surface lightly and make sure you're not drying out. And you'll notice as the tree starts growing, it will use more water. That might be something to do. Keep track of how much water you're doing, and you may put a few ounces on a day now, and it may be 20 ounces a day once the tree really gets growing. We don't want to apply any fertilizer this time. These trees actually are maintained in the nursery on a very high level of nutrition. As you start watering and the tree grows, there'll be some need. I like a slow release fertilizer. This is an example of one. Osmocote, there's many different ones. You may find one that will say citrus, but you want slow release does the best job. What this fertilizer does, this particular one over a 3 to 4 month period, will release about 70 to 80% of the fertilizer, but it's slowly when the plant needs it. There's other fertilizers you can put on there And as soon as they get wet, they're going to release all their fertilizer. And if it either rains or you put water irrigation, you may start moving all your fertilizer away. So slow release does real well. Usually when you get one of these, it'll give a recommendation on the size of the plant, on how much to put. Again, usually 3 to 4 months of growth. There's other nutrition, what they call nutritional sprays as time goes on. You may want to investigate using those because they help with the micronutrients needed by the tree. And then we want to observe for pests. On the website, there's a huge amount of links to all kind of information on pests. This is a book that's also on the website. It's your Florida Dooryard Citrus Guide. It's available from the University of Florida Extension Bookstore, and you can see on the website, and you can get that from the Extension Bookstore. I recommend that because I always like pictures. And the pictures I see on this page here, I know that you're going to see all of those eventually in Skilletons and other things. And there's several pages of those pictures. And that's going to help you identify any pests. Plus, it'll help you just to learn some of the nutritional deficiencies and diseases and all that you may encounter over time. So I recommend maybe a club may buy this book and you can share it however. If you have any problem finding it, just contact my office and we'll see if we can figure out. I spoke to someone who was trying to order the book and had trouble with the website, the bookstore. And I can relate to that because I've had trouble with the website and the bookstore at times. That's the nature of the website. One test that ends up, and I'll just guarantee you, everybody is going to have to deal with, is the citrus leaf miner. And really, for homeowner trees, the best thing we have found is when you have new flush. Now, this tree doesn't have any. Several of the trees had young new flush on there. This is called a spray oil. This is just an example of one. Alpha oil is another. But you want a spray oil that has citrus approved on it. And the oil, if you spray the new flush, there's a very small moth that lays an egg, and the leaf miner actually lives inside the leaf. Sprinkles them up. And every fall, you have trees in your yard, you wonder why your leaves are all crinkled up, it's probably a leaf miner. And if you do that, especially if you're growing the trees outside, which most of them will be, that's something everybody should consider using is the spray oil. This is a pesticide, so that means all instructions must be followed on the pesticide. And I like parental involvement anytime pesticides are used in the project. Parents, please make sure you help and make sure that the labels are understood as far as amounts and other precautions that you have to take. They may say wear rubber gloves. It's hard to say. Oils are relatively low toxicity, but there's nothing in the world is non-toxic. Any amount of anything can cause you problems. So again, make sure parents are involved anytime pesticides are used on a project tree. This is just an example of a type of sprayer. These are kind of handy little sprayers that you find. You may say mix so much per gallon. Of course, this isn't a gallon, but you can do the math. It says a tablespoon per gallon, and this is roughly a quart and a half. So you could do the math on that. They do a real good job applying either foliar nutrition or spray. Okay. Now we see, pretty sure every tree that's being treated today has one of these in it. Who can tell me what this bar is right here? Anybody have any idea? Yes. Well, that's what it does. We call it a tree stake. that comes from the nursery like that, and that helps hold that tree straight. A couple years ago, we had lemon as our project tree, and lemons are very vigorous growing. And a lot of folks added something like this as that tree kept growing, which is fine. We have a combination of stake. I've got some twine there. This depends on how your tree's growing. This is kind of a heavy duty. You might just use a piece of bamboo, but you're probably going to want to put some kind of stake on there. I want one of our experienced growers to tell me what happens if this stake or this or any other combination shows up to prejudging. What's that mean? Right. When we have prejudging, or when we go to the fair for blue ribbon judging, that's an automatic failure. That stake, or if you decide to use another one as the project goes on. So please remember, and actually in prejudging, I've talked to participants, and they'll put the stake back in because it's another month until, especially like with those lemon trees, it's another month until the fair. They'll put it back in and then take it back out for the fair. So this one, actually your metal plant stake, once the tree gets growing pretty good, you can probably do without it. But what it may do in this container like this, you may want to consider a bamboo or something to tie it to, just to keep it growing straight. Sometimes trees, you never know, they may decide to start leaning a little bit for whatever reason. Sometimes they're grown in not necessarily full sun all the time, they'll start going a direction. So if you have something in there as they continue to grow, it's probably a good idea to continue to do that. Yes?
Will it hurt it if you put a bigger stake in it?
Oh no.
Like hurt the root?
No. No. I wouldn't do it today on this one because you don't have a whole lot of roots, but once you can kind of gently tell when the roots are growing out here to the edge. So once your roots are pretty well established, you can put another stake in there. You're not going to really need one. Well, I mean, again, if you're going to be in a place where there's a lot of wind, as it could blow even this little one over, I would tend to, just make sure it's real stable. But it's going to take judgment. Even if you wanted to do one today, I would put it outside as the existing root ball until it gets growing pretty well. But that'll just depend on your location. You'll notice actually the tree in your handout on the cover there, that's one of the lemon trees. It definitely had the stake of that tree. That was in December. They got it in April and it was that tall. So lemons are just real vigorous growers. So these trees, I don't expect them to grow that much. I don't really think they'll grow as much. Our Hamlin's on 897 last year actually grew very. It surprised me because they're known as 897 is known as a dwarfing rootstock, but they grew. And what growers in the field told me early on with 897, yeah, they do grow, but they'll still only top out at 8 feet in the growth. So, but anyhow, it's probably a good idea to have a stake of some kind. But please don't bring it in the prejudging or the fair with a stake because it's automatic disqualification. We've already pretty well covered the sources of information. The mock skillathon date and the stake, so that's kind of the prepared portion of the workshop. And now I'd like to entertain any questions.
How big will this grow?
Pardon?
How big will this tree grow?
This tree, I haven't seen a whole lot of this rootstock, but I believe it's a kind of a medium-sized tree, so it's going to be, it's going to be a good-sized tree.
Is it an orange or a tangerine?
It's tangerine.
The tangerine rootstock?
The rootstock is US 942.
Which is?
I'd have to look that one up. It's a hybrid out of the USDA. But I would have to look. I know they use some trifoliate in their background, but unless I look this one up in particular, I would not know on that. This tree is also called, they call it Chinese honey tangerine. And it's a little later, and
I'm gonna check.
it's become real popular,
Yeah.
especially in kind of trendy type places.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You can call it the Chinese honey, and you can probably get 50 cents a piece more for it when they sell the fruit. But I see references made to that, and I mean, just a pond can. And actually, this is one of the, and when you go to Brazil and Argentina, this is one of the highest acreage planted varieties. Very, very popular variety in South America for fresh fruit. Many thousands of acres in both of those countries. There's very few, I'm sure there's some commercial production still in Florida years ago. Those of you who know Zellwood, there's Pond Can Road. My guess is somebody had a Pond Can Road out there sometimes, how it got its name. But the newer and improved tangerine variety kind of replaced. This one doesn't ship as well. Is one of the problems. Yes.
Do they need to keep a record of what they're doing?
Yeah.
In addition to what the tree looks like? The records will be judged too?
Yeah. A big part of the project is record book judging. When we have the pre-judging on the question was record books. We have pre-judging on January 31st here. You'll bring your tree. Those of you who got 2 trees, you only bring one. You're welcome to grow both of them, but you only bring one to pre-judging. And we will give you a tag that goes on that tree at that time if it's a blue ribbon tree going to the fair.
Are you
And,
supposed to leave that pink tag on it,
I would.
just so everybody knows you're growing the right tree?
Yeah, I'd leave it on there. It's not a deal breaker, but I like seeing it there, and I think the judges probably will too. But we'll come here, the trees will be judged, we'll have the skeleton, which is the skills portion of the project. You will turn in your project books that day. And the project books will be distributed to the various county. We divide them by age category, and various counties will have the judging.
Do you get them back after to put your fair stuff in?
You will get your books back. If you have a blue ribbon tree, you will get them back at the fair. And if not, we'll get them back to the other extension offices. So it just depends on how many blue ribbons. Yes.
What are they judging the trees on?
The trees are judged, and there's a little section on the website that talks. There's about 6 or 8 points, but just overall appearance, straight.
Obvious thing?
Yeah, very obvious. And there's 6 or 8 of them spelled out on the website. So that's what the judges are looking at.
They told us once before to occasionally rub your fingers up and down the trunk to sort of smooth it a little bit.
Well, we had a comment about smoothing. The only, when I talk about sprouts, yeah, smoothness, if you have sprouts coming out, I recommend as soon as you see them, that's what you just rub the sprouts out. I don't think there's anything we can do to improve that. But it's mainly the removal of sprouts. And again, as the tree gets bigger, you're going to determine where your flare of the tree is going to be. This tree I can't tell yet, but we kind of keep letting it grow, and then you may remove existing leaves or any sprouts below that point too.
You said the flare of the tree?
Yeah,
That's
that'll
just
be.
where it starts breaking
If you look at that picture, you see the picture. Everybody see the picture on your handout? Well, that tree was probably a little bit bigger than this, but it looked just like that. And as you can see, the flare is probably up here where the main branch is. So that time will tell on that. You just kind of have to use your eye and use that and other pictures with your eye.
You have to wait and see.
Until they start growing, I don't.
Okay.
But you can look at that picture and